Breaking news in the Lilly and Jack Sullivan case that will shock you to your core. After 7 months of investigation, after 7 months of building a case piece by piece, after 7 months of the community demanding justice, Daniel Martell has finally been arrested. Royal Canadian Mounted Police took him into custody early this morning at his residence in Pictou County, Nova Scotia. He's been formally charged with 3 serious criminal offenses related to the disappearance of 6-year-old Lilly Sullivan and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan, who vanished on May 2, 2025, and have never been found. The charges against Daniel are devastating and reveal exactly what investigators believe happened to those 2 innocent children. This is the moment we've been waiting for. This is accountability beginning to arrive. This is the justice system finally moving forward with prosecution after months of careful evidence gathering. What are the 3 charges Daniel Martell is facing? What evidence led to this arrest? Why now after 7 months? And what does this mean for Malehya Brooks-Murray, the children's mother who many believe was equally involved? The answers reveal a case that's even more disturbing than we knew. Before we break down these charges and what they mean, you absolutely need to subscribe to True Crime Vault right now and smash that notification bell. We've been covering this case from day one with exclusive details you won't find anywhere else. This arrest is breaking news that's developing minute by minute. If you want updates as this case moves through the courts, subscribe immediately. Hit that like button because it pushes this to more people who care about justice for Lilly and Jack. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did you expect these specific charges? Do you think Malehya will be arrested next? Let's discuss this as a community demanding accountability. Daniel Martell was arrested at approximately 6:15 this morning at a residence where he's been staying in Pictou County. Multiple RCMP officers arrived with an arrest warrant signed by a judge. Daniel was taken into custody without incident and transported to an RCMP facility for processing. He appeared before a judge this afternoon for a bail hearing where the 3 charges against him were formally read. And those charges tell us everything about what prosecutors believe happened to Lilly and Jack Sullivan. The first charge is obstruction of justice. This is a serious criminal offense under the Canadian Criminal Code. Obstruction of justice means deliberately interfering with the administration of justice, doing things designed to mislead investigators, hiding evidence, providing false information to police, anything that impedes the investigation and prosecution of crimes. In Daniel's case, prosecutors are alleging that he deliberately obstructed the investigation into what happened to Lilly and Jack Sullivan. This charge relates to his actions after the children disappeared or died, his efforts to cover up what happened, his lies to police about his movements and activities, his coordination with Malehya to present false narratives about the children wandering off into wilderness. Every false statement Daniel made to investigators, every piece of evidence he hid or destroyed, every action he took to mislead the investigation falls under this charge. The obstruction of justice charge is significant because it tells us prosecutors have evidence that Daniel actively worked to prevent the truth from being discovered. This isn't just failing to cooperate with police. This is actively interfering with their investigation. Based on what we know about the case, this charge likely relates to several specific actions. First, his false statements about his movements on May 1st and 2nd. Daniel initially told police he was home all night on May 1st, but security footage showed his truck at a gas station 30 kilometers away at 11:47 p.m. When confronted with that footage, he changed his story. That's obstruction. Lying to police about your whereabouts during the time a crime was committed is interfering with their investigation. Second, the coordination of stories with Malehya. Text messages show them explicitly discussing what to tell police, reminding each other to stick to agreed-upon narratives, making sure their stories matched. That coordination to present false information to investigators is obstruction of justice. Third, potentially destroying evidence. We know large cash withdrawals were made in the days before the disappearance. We know Daniel's internet search history showed research about avoiding detection. We know soil samples and other physical evidence suggest bodies were temporarily on the property then moved. All of this points to deliberate efforts to hide what happened. The second charge against Daniel Martell is interference with human remains. This is an extremely serious charge that was added to the Canadian Criminal Code specifically to address situations where someone disposes of a body to hide evidence of death. The charge doesn't require proof of how the person died or who caused the death. It only requires proof that someone improperly disposed of or concealed human remains. This charge tells us that prosecutors have evidence that Daniel disposed of Lilly and Jack's bodies. They believe they can prove beyond reasonable doubt that he moved the children's remains, that he hid them somewhere, that he took actions to prevent them from being found. This is huge, because it means prosecutors are confident enough in their evidence to charge him with crimes specifically related to the children's bodies, even though those bodies haven't been recovered. What evidence supports this charge? Cell phone tower data placing Daniel in remote woods at 5:30 a.m. on May 2nd, exactly when a delivery driver saw a truck matching his description on a service road in that area. He was there for approximately 30 minutes based on how long his phone pinged towers in that location. What was he doing in isolated woods at dawn? Prosecutors believe he was burying bodies. Soil found on his vehicle and clothing that forensically matches soil from that specific wooded area. You don't get soil from remote wilderness on your truck unless you were there digging. Chemical markers consistent with human decomposition detected at 3 locations on the Sullivan property. These markers indicate bodies were placed there temporarily. The progression suggests the children died in the house, were kept somewhere on the property briefly, then moved to a more permanent location for disposal. Daniel's own text messages discussing needing to take care of things, his vague references to handling a problem, his statements about nobody knowing or seeing anything. Cadaver dog interest in specific locations both on the property and in the direction of those woods where Daniel's phone pinged. The dogs detected decomposition scent even though bodies weren't there anymore, indicating remains had been there but were moved. The interference with human remains charge is critical because it acknowledges the horrific reality that Lilly and Jack are dead and that Daniel disposed of their bodies. It's prosecutors saying, "We know what you did, even though we haven't found where you put them." And it creates enormous pressure on Daniel because this charge can result in significant prison time. He's looking at years behind bars just for this charge alone, regardless of whether he's ultimately charged with actually causing their deaths. The third charge is the most serious and the one that confirms what everyone has suspected from the beginning. Daniel Martell has been charged with 2 counts of accessory after the fact to manslaughter. Let me break down what this charge means because it's legally complex but extremely significant. Being an accessory after the fact means helping someone who's committed a crime avoid detection or punishment. It means you didn't commit the crime yourself, but you assisted the person who did commit it. In this case, prosecutors are alleging that someone else caused the deaths of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, and Daniel helped that person cover up what happened and avoid being caught. The manslaughter designation rather than murder is also legally significant. Manslaughter means unlawful killing without premeditation or intent to kill. It covers situations where death results from mistreatment or neglect, but wasn't necessarily planned in advance. So what is this charge actually saying? It's saying prosecutors believe Malehya Brooks-Murray caused the deaths of her own children, probably through a combination of physical mistreatment and neglect, and that Daniel helped her cover it up afterward. He didn't necessarily harm the children himself, but he knew Malehya had caused their deaths, and he assisted her in disposing of the bodies and creating a false narrative to avoid prosecution. This explains why Daniel is charged as an accessory rather than being charged directly with causing the deaths. The evidence suggests Malehya was the primary actor in what happened to the children, but Daniel became criminally liable by helping her hide what she'd done. This charge structure also explains a lot about the text messages between Daniel and Malehya that we've analyzed before. Remember the message where Malehya said, "This is your fault, you said you'd take care of everything and now we're both going to get caught?" And Daniel responded, "Nothing is my fault. You wanted this as much as I did." That exchange makes perfect sense in light of these charges. Malehya was trying to put blame on Daniel for the cover-up going wrong. Daniel was reminding her that she was the one who actually harmed the children, and he was just helping her hide it. The message where Malehya said, "I can't stop thinking about what we did," and Daniel told her to stop saying that in texts because someone might see. What they did was her causing the deaths and both of them working together to dispose of the bodies and lie to police. Daniel's threats to tell police everything including what you did if Malehya tried to blame him. He was threatening to stop protecting her and reveal that she caused the deaths. The accessory after the fact charge carries severe penalties under Canadian law. It's treated almost as seriously as the underlying crime itself. Daniel could face life imprisonment for being an accessory to manslaughter. The fact that there are 2 counts, one for each child, means the sentences could potentially be served consecutively rather than concurrently, effectively doubling his potential prison time. Now let's talk about the evidence that supports these charges, because prosecutors don't arrest someone on charges this serious without substantial proof. The evidence against Daniel has been building for 7 months through meticulous investigation. First, there's the timeline evidence showing the children were last seen alive at 2:25 p.m. on May 1st and were never independently verified alive after that point. Only Daniel and Malehya claim the kids were fine that evening and the next morning. But text messages show Malehya told Daniel the kids were in bed at 7:15 p.m. on May 1st, more than 2 hours earlier than what they told police. Something happened during those hours they needed to hide. Second, the forensic evidence from the house. Luminol revealed blood belonging to both children in Jack's bedroom and in the bathroom. DNA testing conclusively matched the blood to Lilly and Jack. Both children bled inside that house. That directly contradicts the story that they walked outside and vanished into woods. Whatever happened to them happened inside that house while only Daniel and Malehya were present. Third, the evidence of body disposal, cell phone data, witness sightings, soil analysis, decomposition markers, all of it points to Daniel moving bodies from the property to remote woods in the early morning hours of May 2nd. Fourth, Daniel's own behavior and statements. His lies about being home all night when footage shows him at a gas station. His inability to explain why he was in remote woods at dawn. His internet searches about avoiding detection. His coordination with Malehya on what to tell police. His confidence that nobody saw anything and nobody knows. Fifth, the financial evidence. Large cash withdrawals that neither could explain. Money withdrawn in the days before the disappearance, likely used to purchase items for disposal of bodies that Daniel wanted to pay for without leaving an electronic trail. Sixth, the pattern of behavior toward the children in the months before they disappeared. Daniel's text messages expressing resentment about supporting kids who weren't his. His suggestions that Malehya be tougher with them. His statements about the kids not going anywhere unless something happens to them. This establishes his mindset and willingness to be involved in harming the children. Seventh, the cover-up coordination. Text messages showing Daniel and Malehya working together to maintain false narratives, reminding each other what story to tell, discussing police questions and making sure their answers matched, explicitly stating this only works if we tell the same story. Eighth, consciousness of guilt shown in messages after the disappearance. Malehya saying what if they find out and Daniel telling her they won't if they stick to the agreement. Daniel's relief when cadaver dogs didn't dig despite showing interest in specific spots. Malehya explicitly stating, "I can't stop thinking about what we did." Daniel calculating that if charges were coming, they would have happened already. All of this demonstrates they both know they committed serious crimes and are trying to avoid consequences. The prosecution's theory of the case, based on all this evidence, appears to be this. During the evening of May 1st or overnight into May 2nd, something happened inside that house that resulted in the deaths of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Based on the charges, prosecutors believe Malehya was primarily responsible for causing those deaths, likely through some combination of physical mistreatment that escalated beyond what she intended and possible neglect of injuries that needed immediate medical attention. The children were already isolated from school and from people who might notice injuries or distress. Whatever happened when only Daniel and Malehya were present with the children and baby Meadow. After the children died, Daniel and Malehya made a decision not to call authorities, not to report what happened, not to seek help. Instead, they decided to cover it up by disposing of the bodies and creating a false story about the children wandering off. Daniel's role, according to the charges, was primarily in the cover-up rather than in causing the deaths themselves. He helped move and hide the bodies. He made trips to remote areas to dispose of remains. He purchased items with cash that were used in the disposal process. He lied to police about his whereabouts and activities. He coordinated with Malehya on maintaining false narratives. He worked actively to obstruct the investigation and prevent the truth from being discovered. This makes him criminally liable as an accessory after the fact. He knew serious crimes had been committed, and instead of reporting them or cooperating with justice, he helped the perpetrator avoid detection. The question everyone is asking now is, what does this mean for Malehya Brooks-Murray? If Daniel is charged as an accessory after the fact to manslaughter, That necessarily means prosecutors believe Malehya committed manslaughter. You can't be an accessory to a crime unless someone committed that crime. So why hasn't Malehya been arrested and charged yet? There are several possible explanations. First, prosecutors may be using Daniel's arrest to pressure Malehya. Now that Daniel has been arrested and is facing serious charges, Malehya knows her own arrest is likely imminent. This creates pressure for her to potentially cooperate, to provide information about what really happened, possibly to testify against Daniel in exchange for reduced charges. The first person to cooperate typically gets the better deal. Prosecutors may be giving Malehya a small window to decide if she wants to talk before they arrest her too. Second, prosecutors may be building an even stronger case against Malehya before arresting her. Since the charges indicate she was the one who actually caused the deaths, rather than just helping cover them up, the evidentiary standard may be higher for charging her. They may want absolutely overwhelming evidence before they bring those charges. Third, there may be legal or procedural reasons for staging the arrests separately. Perhaps they want to see what Daniel says now that he's been arrested, whether he makes any statements or admissions that strengthen the case against Malehya. Perhaps they want to prevent the two of them from coordinating their defense strategies if they were arrested simultaneously. But make no mistake, charges against Malehya are almost certainly coming. You don't charge someone as an accessory to crimes committed by a specific person without planning to charge that person with the underlying crimes. The accessory charges against Daniel explicitly state that Malehya committed manslaughter. That's not speculation. That's prosecutors formally alleging in legal documents that Malehya Brooks-Murray unlawfully caused the deaths of her children Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Expect to see Malehya arrested and charged within days or weeks at most. The bail hearing for Daniel this afternoon was brief but significant. Prosecutors opposed bail, arguing Daniel is a flight risk and a danger to the community. They presented evidence of the seriousness of the charges and the strength of their case. Daniel's defense attorney argued for bail, claiming Daniel has ties to the community and isn't a flight risk. But the judge sided with prosecutors. Bail was denied. Daniel Martell will remain in custody until trial. He's been remanded to a provincial correctional facility where he'll be held in protective custody given the nature of the charges and the high profile of the case. His next court appearance is scheduled for 2 weeks from now for a preliminary hearing where prosecutors will present an overview of their evidence. This case will now move through the court system, a process that typically takes many months. There will be preliminary hearings where evidence is presented. There will be motions from defense attorneys challenging various aspects of the prosecution's case. There will be negotiations about plea deals. There will eventually be a trial unless Daniel pleads guilty. Throughout all of this, the public will learn more details about the evidence against him. Court documents will be filed and made public. Testimony will be heard. The full story of what happened to Lilly and Jack Sullivan will finally emerge. For the family members of Lilly and Jack, this arrest brings mixed emotions. There's relief that finally someone is being held accountable, that the justice system is moving forward after 7 frustrating months. There's validation that their suspicions about Daniel and Malehya were correct, that investigators believed them when they said something wasn't right about the parents' story. But there's also renewed grief as the charges confirm what they feared, that these children are dead, that they were killed by people who should have protected them. And there's continued anguish that the bodies haven't been found, that they can't lay these children to rest properly, that Lilly and Jack are still out there somewhere waiting to be brought home. The community of Pictou County is also processing this news. Many people participated in searches believing they were looking for lost children who might still be alive. Many people supported Daniel and Malehya in those early days, bringing them food, offering prayers, believing their story. Now they're confronting the reality that they were deceived, that the parents they sympathized with are actually responsible for the deaths they were supposedly grieving. There's anger at being manipulated. There's guilt about not seeing through the lies sooner, and there's determination to see justice served. The charges against Daniel also raise important questions about the child welfare system and whether this tragedy could have been prevented. Remember, a teacher filed a report with Child Protective Services 3 weeks before the children disappeared, documenting concerns about bruises and behavioral changes, suggesting the children weren't safe at home. But that report sat in a queue and no investigation was launched before the children died. If a social worker had visited the home, If the children had been interviewed, if the situation had been assessed by professionals, might Lilly and Jack still be alive? The system failed these children. And while we can't change what happened, we can demand reforms that might save other children in the future. There are also questions about Daniel's previous history with child welfare. He'd been investigated years earlier for being too rough with another partner's child, for grabbing a child hard enough to leave marks. That investigation was documented, but didn't result in charges or any restrictions on him being around children. Should there be better tracking of people who've had substantiated concerns raised about their treatment of children? Should there be mechanisms to alert new partners about previous investigations? These are difficult questions involving privacy rights and presumption of innocence, but they're questions this case forces us to confront. The legal proceedings moving forward will be complex and lengthy. Defense attorneys will challenge every piece of evidence. They'll argue the charges aren't supported. They'll claim the investigation was flawed. They'll try to create reasonable doubt. That's their job, and their clients are entitled to vigorous defense. But the evidence against Daniel appears overwhelming. The forensic evidence, the timeline evidence, the digital evidence from phones, the witness statements, the text messages showing consciousness of guilt, all of it paints a damning picture. Prosecutors wouldn't have brought these charges without confidence they can prove them beyond reasonable doubt. One key question for trial will be whether Daniel decides to testify in his own defense. Defendants have the right to remain silent and often don't testify because it opens them up to cross-examination. But if Daniel wants to explain away all the evidence against him, he may need to take the stand and tell his version of events. If he does testify, prosecutors will tear apart every inconsistency, every changed story, every lie he told investigators. It will be devastating cross-examination. Another key question is whether Malehya will be called as a witness. If she's charged as prosecutors expect, she'll have her own trial and won't testify at Daniel's trial because of her right against self-incrimination. But if she decides to cooperate with prosecutors and plead guilty in exchange for a deal, she could testify against Daniel about what really happened. Her testimony about the events of May 1st and 2nd would be crucial evidence. Of course, defense attorneys would attack her credibility, pointing out she has every incentive to lie and put blame on Daniel to reduce her own culpability. The question of where the bodies are located will haunt this case until they're recovered. Prosecutors can prove crimes without bodies. It's been done successfully in many cases. But juries and the public want that final piece of certainty, and the families desperately need to bring Lilly and Jack home. There's hope that Daniel or Malehya will eventually reveal the location, either as part of a cooperation agreement or simply to ease their conscience. Sometimes perpetrators in cases like this reach a point where they want the remains found, where keeping that secret becomes too heavy a burden. The location is likely somewhere in those woods where Daniel's phone pinged, somewhere in the rough terrain where he spent 30 minutes that dawn morning. Searches will continue in that area with renewed focus now that charges have been filed. Now let me walk you through the detailed timeline of this case from the beginning so you understand how we got to this arrest today. On May 2nd, 2025, at 10:01 a.m., Malehya Brooks-Murray called 911 to report that her children Lilly and Jack had vanished from their backyard. She told the operator the children had been playing outside, that she and Daniel were inside with baby Meadow, that they could hear the kids. But then it went quiet. When they checked, the children were gone and the back gate to Wilderness was open. Within an hour, massive search operations were underway. Volunteers, police, search dogs, helicopters, everyone mobilized to find two missing children. Daniel and Malehya appeared on camera devastated, begging for the children's return. The nation watched, hoping for a miracle. But investigators immediately started noticing problems. The last confirmed sighting of the children alive was May 1st at 2:25 p.m. on Dollarama security footage. After that, only Daniel and Malehya claimed to have seen them. Teachers said Lily's cough was minor and wouldn't require missing multiple days of school. Yet Daniel and Malehya kept the children home, April 30th, May 1st, and claimed they were home May 2nd. Why isolate the children from mandatory reporters in those final days? Daniel initially told police he was home all night May 1st. But security footage showed his truck at a gas station 30 kilometers away at 11:47 p.m. When confronted, he changed his story. Red flag. Text messages between Daniel and Malehya showed Malehya texted Daniel at 7:15 p.m. May 1st, saying kids are in bed. but they told police the children went to bed at 9 or 9:30. Why lie about bedtime unless something happened during those unaccounted hours? More text messages showed them coordinating stories about what to tell police, reminding each other to stick to agreed narratives, explicitly stating this only works if we tell the same story. Consciousness of guilt. Forensic examination of the house revealed blood belonging to both children. Luminol showed blood in Jack's bedroom and in the bathroom. DNA testing confirmed it was Lilly and Jack's blood. Both children bled inside that house. This directly contradicted the story that they walked outside and vanished. Cell phone tower data placed Daniel's phone in remote woods at 5:30 a.m. May 2nd. A delivery driver saw a truck matching Daniel's description in that area at 5:45 a.m. Daniel was there for 30 minutes. What was he doing in isolated wilderness at dawn, the morning the children were reported missing? Soil analysis found chemical markers consistent with human decomposition at 3 locations on the Sullivan property. Bodies had been there temporarily, then moved. Cadaver dogs showed interest in those same locations and in the direction of the woods where Daniel's phone pinged. Large cash withdrawals totaling over $2,000 were made from Malehya's account in the 2 weeks before the disappearance. Neither could explain where that money went. Internet search history from the household showed research about how long children survive in cold weather, how police investigate missing persons, how to avoid leaving evidence. Someone was planning and researching. Teachers reported they'd had concerns about the children for months. Bruises on Jack, behavioral changes in both kids suggesting trauma. One teacher filed a formal report with Child Protective Services 3 weeks before the disappearance, but the system didn't act in time. Neighbors reported hearing arguments from the house, children crying, someone yelling stop, but they didn't call authorities. Daniel had a previous history of concerns about being too rough with a partner's child. Malia had previously lost custody of Lilly and Jack temporarily due to concerns about her parenting. Text messages between Daniel and friends showed him expressing resentment about supporting kids who weren't his, saying the kids aren't going anywhere unless something happens to them. Text messages between Daniel and Malehya showed them discussing how much better life would be without the children, calculating how much money they'd save, fantasizing about not having the responsibilities. Malehya texted that she wished she could start over without the children. Daniel agreed they'd be better off without them. After the disappearance, text messages showed fear of being caught. Malehya asked, "What if they find out?" Daniel said they won't if they stick to the plan. When cadaver dogs searched the property, Malehya texted Daniel that the dogs showed interest in spots. Daniel asked if they dug. When Malehya said no, Daniel said, "Good, that's good." "Why relief unless there's something buried he doesn't want found?" Malehya texted, "I can't stop thinking about what we did." Daniel told her to stop saying that in texts because someone might see. Admission there's something to hide. When Malehya briefly left Daniel and went to family, she texted, "This is your fault. You said you'd take care of everything." Daniel responded, "Nothing is my fault. You wanted this as much as I did." They were arguing about blame for something they both did. Daniel threatened, "If you try to put this all on me, I'll tell them everything including what you did." Leverage. When they reconciled, Daniel texted, "We need to stick together. That's the only way we get through this." Malehya agreed, "It's you and me against them," positioning themselves as adversaries of investigators. Months passed with no charges as prosecutors built their case. They interviewed hundreds of witnesses. They analyzed thousands of pieces of evidence. They consulted with forensic experts. They reviewed every text message, every financial record, every movement captured on camera or tracked by cell towers. They built an overwhelming case. And today, 7 months after Lilly and Jack disappeared, Daniel Martell was arrested and charged with 3 serious crimes. The arrest happened at dawn, officers arriving with warrant in hand. Daniel was reportedly calm during the arrest, not resisting, not saying anything significant. He was transported to RCMP headquarters for processing. Fingerprints, photographs, formal booking procedures. He was allowed to contact an attorney who met with him before the bail hearing. At the bail hearing this afternoon, prosecutors presented their case for why bail should be denied. They outlined the seriousness of the charges, the strength of the evidence, the risk of flight, the danger to the community. Daniel's attorney argued he's not a flight risk, has ties to Nova Scotia, should be released pending trial. But the judge was convinced by prosecutors. Bail denied. Daniel will remain behind bars. The charges filed against Daniel tell us prosecutors' theory of what happened. The obstruction charge says Daniel lied to police, hid evidence, coordinated false stories, actively interfered with the investigation. The interference with human remains charge says Daniel moved and hid the children's bodies, disposing of them to prevent discovery. The accessory to manslaughter charges say Malehya caused the deaths of Lilly and Jack through unlawful actions that weren't premeditated murder, but were serious enough to cause death, and Daniel helped her cover it up. These charges, taken together, paint a picture of a terrible crime followed by an elaborate cover-up. What likely happened, based on these charges and the evidence? Something occurred in that house on the evening of May 1st. Malehya, overwhelmed and resentful about the children, at her breaking point from stress and financial pressure, did something that resulted in the children's deaths. Whether it was physical mistreatment that went too far, whether it was neglect of serious injuries, whether it was something else, we don't know yet. But Malehya caused those children to die. Daniel, when he discovered what had happened, made a choice.
Instead of calling for help, instead of reporting what occurred, instead of trying to get justice for two innocent children, he decided to help Malehya cover it up. Maybe out of misguided loyalty, maybe because he feared being implicated, maybe because he'd been complicit in the mistreatment leading up to their deaths. Whatever his reasons, he chose to become an accessory.
Daniel and Malehya then worked together to dispose of the bodies and create a false narrative. The children were put to bed early, at 7:15, probably because they were already dead or dying. Daniel made his trip to the gas station around midnight, possibly buying supplies needed for disposal. In the early morning hours of May 2nd, Daniel took the bodies to remote woods and buried them. He spent 30 minutes there digging and concealing. He returned home. Later that morning, he and Malehya called 911 with their fabricated story about children wandering off. They maintained that lie through searches, through media interviews, through police questioning. They coordinated their stories. They reminded each other what to say. They presented themselves as grieving parents when they were actually responsible for what they were supposedly grieving. But investigators saw through it. They noticed the inconsistencies. They followed the evidence. They built a case. And now Daniel is in custody facing justice. Malehya's arrest is likely imminent. The walls are closing in. The lies are catching up to them. And accountability is arriving. For Lilly and Jack's extended family, this day brings complicated emotions. Relief that someone is finally being charged. Validation that their suspicions were correct. But also pain as the charges confirm the children are dead. Frustration that the bodies haven't been found. Anger at the people who did this. And determination to see the case through to conviction. Family members have released a statement saying they're grateful to RCMP for their tireless work. That they hope this arrest leads to discovering where the children are. That they won't rest until everyone responsible is held fully accountable. The community is also reacting. Many people who participated in searches feel betrayed. They spent days combing woods believing they were looking for lost children. They brought food to Daniel and Malehya. They prayed for the family. Now they know they were deceived. Local officials are praising investigators for building such a strong case. Community leaders are calling for reforms to child protective services so this never happens again. Vigils are being planned to remember Lilly and Jack and demand justice. Legal experts commenting on the case say the charges are significant and well supported. Former prosecutors interviewed by media say you don't charge someone with interfering with human remains unless you have strong evidence bodies were disposed of. You don't charge accessory to manslaughter unless you're planning to charge the principal with manslaughter. They expect Malehya to be arrested very soon. Defense attorneys commenting generally about cases like this say defending against this kind of evidence is extremely difficult. The forensic evidence, the digital evidence, the consciousness of guilt, all of it creates a compelling narrative that's hard to overcome. The question of motive has been discussed extensively. Why would a mother harm her own children? The evidence suggests a combination of factors: severe financial stress creating desperation, resentment toward children from a previous relationship, feeling overwhelmed and unable to cope, a relationship with Daniel where both expressed wanting the children gone. None of this excuses or justifies what happened, but it helps explain the mindset that led to this tragedy. Lilly and Jack were viewed as obstacles to the life Daniel and Malehya wanted. They were seen as financial burdens. They were resented rather than loved. And in a moment or series of moments of terrible judgment, they were harmed fatally. The legal process moving forward will be lengthy. Preliminary hearings will happen where prosecutors preview their evidence, and the judge determines if there's enough to proceed to trial. Discovery will occur where defense attorneys receive all prosecution evidence and begin planning their defense strategy. Motions will be filed, challenging various aspects of the case. Plea negotiations may occur where prosecutors offer reduced charges in exchange for cooperation or guilty pleas. If no plea deal is reached, trial will be scheduled, likely many months from now. Jury selection will happen. Opening statements will be made. Witnesses will testify. Evidence will be presented. Closing arguments will occur. The jury will deliberate and reach a verdict. Throughout this process, the public will learn more. Court documents will reveal evidence details. Testimony will provide new information. The full picture of what happened to Lilly and Jack will emerge. It will be difficult to hear. It will be heartbreaking, but it's necessary for justice. These children deserve to have their story told. They deserve to have the truth known. They deserve to have the people responsible held accountable. The question of whether Daniel will cooperate is interesting. He's facing very serious time. If he provides information about where the bodies are, if he testifies against Malehya about her role, prosecutors might offer him a better deal. But cooperation would require admitting his own guilt. It would require betraying Malehya. It would require facing the horror of what he helped do. Some defendants in cases like this eventually cooperate. The burden of the secret becomes too heavy. The desire for some kind of redemption kicks in. We'll see if Daniel reaches that point. The search for the bodies will intensify now that charges have been filed. Investigators know the general area from cell phone data. They'll focus searches there with renewed energy. They'll bring in specialized equipment. They'll use ground-penetrating radar. They'll bring cadaver dogs back repeatedly. They'll interview Daniel again, trying to get him to reveal the location. Finding Lilly and Jack is a priority not just for the prosecution's case, but for the family's peace and for the children's dignity. This case has captured national attention because it represents every parent's worst nightmare. Children harmed by the very people supposed to protect them. A mother who should have loved her children instead harming them. A stepfather who should have been a protector instead becoming an accessory to their deaths. A system that had warnings but didn't act fast enough. A community that heard concerning things but didn't intervene. It's a case study in how tragedies happen when multiple failures align. But it's also a case study in how justice can prevail. Investigators didn't give up. They followed every lead. They analyzed every piece of evidence. They built an overwhelming case. Prosecutors didn't rush to charge before they were ready. They waited until they had what they needed. And now accountability is happening. Daniel is in custody. Malehya will likely join him soon. They will face trial. They will face justice. And Lilly and Jack Sullivan will not be forgotten. What do you think about these charges? Do the charges match what you expected? Do you think the evidence is strong enough for conviction? When do you think Malehya will be arrested? Share all your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to True Crime Vault for continuing coverage as this case moves through the courts. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you don't miss updates, and smash that like button. Share this video with anyone following this case. If you have any information about where the children might be, contact RCMP immediately. The search continues. Justice is coming. Thank you for watching this breaking coverage of the Daniel Martell arrest in the Lilly and Jack Sullivan case.